life is a mess and you're totally stressed out, just call Trent. Just call Trent. When your wife is cold as ice and you need some advice, just call Trent. Just call Trent. He'll shoot it straight and he won't say no. He'll just give you that advice and say, well, there you go.
So thanks for doing this, man. I saw you like a week or two ago at Stand Up New York. I thought you were hilarious.
That was the first time I've been doing these comedy shows where, you do it at like a Knights of Columbus or a hall, and like the Little League Society or the Men's Society has a night. And I did I must have done about 15 of these shows. I got better doing those because the audiences are like, they're there for a cause. They want to laugh. They're all like over 40 and they're just sitting there with their wife and having a few cocktails. It's a local thing. And I got used to that. Then I hadn't done with COVID and other things. I haven't done a comedy club in a very long time. So I ended up taking a ride in with my buddy, Joe Matarese. He was going to take a ride in to bounce around these clubs. And so I went with him and I met this, we ended up at Stand Up New York, and I wasn't going to go on. And I met this guy named Greg Alperin, and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. I was like, I know you, dude. How do I know you? And he goes, oh, did you send me a script 15 years ago called The Kick? And he's like, how do you remember that? I'm like, I don't know. I remember your name. I remember the script being good. So he goes, I lost it. I don't even have it anymore. I was like, oh. So I went home and I sent it to him. But he said, listen, I run these nights here at Stand Up New York. So he booked me the following week, I guess, or 2 weeks later. And I was trying to be cool in the room. Stand Up New York's kind of a cool little club there. And I had performed there a very long time ago. I used to live on the Upper West Side. So I was familiar, but I'm like, I'm walking around and people are like, oh, Jimmy, I saw you in this, I saw you in that. And I'm acting, I'm like, yeah, but I got to go do stand up now in front of a regular crowd. And the guy gave me a great intro. And I was happy with my set. I thought I improv well. I made some mistakes, blew some jokes here or there, but I did like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was happy with it.
Yeah, it was funny. I was hanging out with another comic, and then we were talking about how great you were, and we were looking up your IMDb and stuff, and couldn't believe how many things I had seen you in. And then I started to remember how I recognize you and stuff.
Well, you know what's funny is, I could sound like a jackass right now, but that's okay. That's happened. What happens now is, I think when people, a lot of comics, they want my resume and my agents and stuff, and I want their set. So
right.
In other words, it's like the grass it's really a life lesson. Like, here I am thinking like, oh, some of these comics are so good. And, I can be okay. I mean, whatever. I don't want to judge myself. I'll let the crowd judge it.
Yeah.
And then some of the comics are like, oh my God, this guy's been on so many TV shows. But I'm like, yeah, but we're at a comedy club now. And nobody cares. You did an episode of Law and Order 9 years ago. And you got to tell jokes, So, but I'm actually I'm improving as a stand-up, I think. I think the main reason is I'm letting go of the who cares. In other words, I used to be like, every show was like, this is going to make me or break me. And if I do this show, Trent Mabry will have me on his podcast. He'll put me up at a show because he thinks I'm great. And I think that affects your performance. It really does. And I got burned by doing stand-up in LA. There's a lot of, there's tons of talent in LA, the most in the world. I say that to everybody. It's a big fishbowl, really is. But I did all these rooms where comics weren't listening. They were worrying about their own notes, and I didn't know anybody. Everybody acts like, Jimmy, you never really pursued stand-up. I'm like, I did. I did like 500 shows, but I did these coffee houses and these rooms where there was no comic. I tell the story. I did it a night. My buddy came with me, my buddy Pat Volkamer, who works in production. And there was a comedy place on the West Side, LA, who did like open mics kind of thing every night. But it was a regular bar. I guess that was their niche. They just had comic. It was a good idea. You have comics coming in, blah, blah, blah. It was a regular bar though. And a pretty nice little stage and everything, all that kind of stuff. And there was only 8 people in the audience when I walked in. eight comics,
Mhm.
and one by one, as the different comics went on, they would leave. Why are they going to watch another
Right.
comic? When I next thing you know, there was nobody in the room,
Yeah.
including my buddy who left to go have a cigarette outside.
Yeah.
And so the bartender looks at me, he's like, all right, pal, like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, show must go on, man.
Yeah.
So he goes up on stage. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Palumbo. Silence. And I took the microphone. Now my buddy Pat sees me through the window, and he's like, my buddy's on. There's no one in the room. So I walked in. I only did like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Just to say I did it. But those rooms were bad. And then because you think you suck, and perhaps I did, but you get no feedback. And I firmly believe, for me, my personality is you say something, the audience reacts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like you're in a writer's room for Letterman when you're firing off 8 jokes and no one's laughing. And then the head writer goes, those are all really great. We're going to use 3.
Right.
It's not like that. Stand-up's different. You say, and then the tree fell on my leg. And if they laugh, you keep that joke in. If you say, then the tree fell on my leg and no one's listening, you think, oh, I got to get rid of that joke. No one left. It wasn't listening.
Yeah.
So that's what screwed me up for years. And plus I probably wasn't that good either. And then I got better as time went on. And now I think I'm a decent little comic. But, I'm really headlining for the first time in my life, April 1st.
Oh, really?
Yeah. At Avenel, I got to do 45 to 55.
Yeah.
And I'm nervous because I'm like, but then I realized, well, wait a minute. I have bits that I don't do anymore because of time, that are maybe kind of funny. And maybe since I'm a little more comfortable on stage, I can do them.
Mhm.
So I'm literally just going to have a cheat sheet on stage. Instead of having like 10 bits that I do, I'm just going to put all 20 down.
Yeah.
Set my Apple Watch to 50 minutes. And when that watch goes off, I know I've done my time.
Yeah.
And I'm out. Plus, I'm going to have a real homey audience, friends and family. I'm sure it'll be almost half the room.
Yeah.
So, which could be a nightmare. They don't, because they've seen you, they don't laugh at stuff. But
Sure.
My attitude is, Jimmy, you need to stay on stage for 50 minutes and get off. So I've kind of changed my attitude with stuff, but I appreciate you kind words and then bringing me on the show. So
Oh, no problem. And
I have a
yeah, I can
podcast
definitely relate to like the just the comics, because I started in Indiana. I've been doing it about 7 years. Just moved to New York.
That's good.
And in Indiana, like the mics and stuff, you would have actual audience.
Right.
And here it's just all comics. So it has been it's a hard transition.
Don't listen. Trust me, I'm an old man now. Don't let that ruin you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Unless this is, oh God, I sound like a pompous fool now, but unless you have like a new 3-minute thing you want to do, say no to certain rooms. Unless you just want to go out and try to get laid, meet and female comics. I don't know. I'm kidding. I'm just saying, otherwise do it at home. Call me up, do it on speakerphone. Tell
Right.
a joke to me.
Yeah.
Because it's depressing when it gets depressing. Instead of doing them every night, be choosy. Because the next night I ended up doing a room, that Black Cat Cafe. Have you ever done that room?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't done it,
Okay.
but I know where it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the difference between Stand Up New York and the Black Cat
Mhm.
Cafe, one's in East Village, one's in Upper West Side.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I went, I got that whole feeling again. Only comics were in the room. And the people that were there on their laptops, like working from home or having coffee, it was a cool little place, couches downtown, people serving like weird coffees that I hate anyway. And, but I went, oh my God, like people are up there. Some comics were funny, some were not. Some people were saying funny stuff, but you get the agreeable look. No one laughs because
Right.
But other people were annoyed because the comic was intruded on them. They were on their computer working on homework or whatever, or just farting around. And all of a sudden there's a comic. It's like, hey, lower that guy. I don't want to hear him. I made a coffee out. And I struggled the first 2 or 3 minutes until I did make an adjustment. Okay, let me just talk to the people in the room. So it's more like therapy.
Yeah.
But it was weird. Plus, like, no one really laughed. But there was only 3 people in the room anyway by the time it went on. And then some people like, oh, you did really well. I'm like, no, you're lying to me. Shut up. So anyway, it's been a recent. I started doing it again, and it's been the stand up thing. I'm hopefully I want to be able to listen. I need to make money. I'd like to make a few bucks doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But same thing as my podcast, the Jimmy Palumbo Show. Shameless plug. It's my acting career that's going to guide that podcast. If I somehow get blessed and become on a regular on a show or something, then I'll have a format now and a forum to talk about stuff and increase my media footprint, as they say.
Yeah.
So same thing with the stand-up, there's really good stand-ups out there that nobody knows.
Yeah,
You see
exactly.
'em like, how many times you said, who's this jerk? They look weird, right? They go on stage and they kill for a half hour, and you're like, how come nobody knows who this guy is?
Right.
Sometimes you find out, I'm a postman. I work 9 to 5. I just do 10 night. And other times you go up to them, you're like, dude, nobody know. Who are you? And they're like, oh, I'm one of the writers for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Then you realize how out of the loop you are, Anyway.
Well, it's such a toss up. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in central New Jersey, Colonia, New Jersey. And I lived there. Technically, I lived there for 41 years. I did live, though. I say technically because I did live in the city for 5 years, but I always had my mail go back to my parents' house. This is pathetic. Probably because every now and then my mother would open up a bill and pay it. But no, I lived in LA for like overall 10 years. So the 5 years I lived in New York, I literally slept in New York every night. But when I lived in LA, I pretty much went to LA September to May. I couldn't afford to have both the apartment and my apartment in LA. So I subletted like everybody else does. And plus I had a house on the Jersey Shore with my buddies. So
Yeah.
I would go home in May and people like, what are you doing? Why are you going? I'm like, you summering in New Jersey? I'm like, yeah, it's a hell of a lot nicer than here.
Right.
And I did that for 10 years. But the good thing was, I didn't do it this way, but I got lucky. I had really good representation in New York. When I say really good, just people that liked me and they submitted me on gigs that I was right for. So when I came home for the summer, I auditioned just as much as I was when I was in LA. So, and many times more. So I would stretch it instead of going back Labor Day. If the Yankees win the playoffs, I'd push it to October, something like that. I remember one year when the Yankees played the Mets, I didn't go back to the series was over. My agents in LA were like, when are you coming back? I'm like, Yankees are playing the Mets. You don't leave New York. But I did it that way, but it really benefited me for two reasons. Number one, I kept my agents on both coasts. And I'm not saying talent did it, but I was always around, and plus I would fly home if I had to for auditions. I did all that's before you self-tape world. So that's what I ended up doing. And plus I was able to just always maintain a good relationship with casting people in New York and LA as well. So yeah. that worked out. And plus a lot of actors in New York never make the move to LA. And they regret it. And a lot of LA actors never make the move to New York. And that's why I give you credit for getting out of Indiana. Not that you're leaving anything lousy, but what it is you need to, if you only stay in the Chicago, Indiana, Wisconsin area and do stand-up, that's cool. I'm sure your set's great. But, let's face it, New York and LA are the big dogs.
Exactly.
And it's like saying, it just is. So you got to give either LA or New York a shot. And I think for stand-up, the right move is to give New York a shot first. And what you do is you cut your teeth. So you start out locally, you cut your teeth. It's the biggest mistake kids make. Cut your teeth where you're at. There's stuff going on in Indiana, community theater, which I did in Jersey even. And then you got to go to the big city. And you know what? It sucks. I'll tell you why it sucks. You got to borrow some money sometimes. You got to have money to live. You got to have, in New York, the rents are high. In LA, you got to have a car, you got to have an apartment. You got to live nearby everything. You can't live an hour away in LA. You just can't. The traffic's too much. In New York, you got to have rents are high. You got to be in a safe neighborhood. And that's when you rely on your family and friend. That's what I tell people. Like, look, being a good guy within your family. Now you may have to borrow 5 to 10 grand or something off your family.
Exactly.
And they got to be supportive. If they're not supportive, that's fine too. If they think you're a complete jerk off for doing showbiz, well, then you got to work and have that cash you can't show up with only $100 in your checking account.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be out of showbiz. I was blessed with a wonderful family and credit cards. So any of my evil doings, I put on a credit card. But
Right.
I was in a scam. I got loans from friends. My brother has been great to me. My sister has been great to me. My parents were still, even now, tremendous help. And it's important, even if they don't quite believe in you, as long as you're not just sleeping on the couch all day long. So it's important anyway. And I've learned that from different acting classes. They've been covered, and you have to have a little family support. If you don't have the right family, a friend support,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if you're just laying on the couch all day long and asking for money, after a while, you're not going to get it. But if they see you really making strides, they'll throw you a few dollars, get you through. Anyway, I'm pontificating, so I'll get off my circle.
Oh, no, you're fine. When did you realize you wanted to get into business? Because you started kind of like late, I would say, in your mid-20s, right?
I started in showbiz 6 days ago. Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. I was I've said this before. I got inspired in a weird way. When I was like 13 or 14, we lived near the high school in Colonia, and they did a I can't believe I'm not gonna remember the play. Heaven Can Wait. That play,
Mm-hmm.
and there was the Jack Albertson role was played by this young kid. He was probably 18, and it's a real curmudgeonly creative role, and they had to put a mustache on him and everything. And this kid, I don't even know his name, he just nailed this part, and he was getting laughs. And I remember sitting there going like, you know what, I want to do that, but I didn't have the balls. I was afraid, even to the point where the high school play, when I was a senior, they ended up just doing like a musical review. I didn't want to do it. I was too afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And my cousin John did it. And I loved my cousin John. I'm still, really tight with him. They got him to do it. And I wouldn't do it. I just kept on saying no. And then I went to Rutgers, and a couple of things happened when I got out of Rutgers. It all kind of, there was like we were supposed to move with my buddy right out of Rutgers, right to LA to pursue showbiz, because somewhere along the line, he did a little short film that I did. And I kind of got the bug, but I was thinking to go into not really acting like anything, but we went to go visit the summer after I graduated Rutgers in '87, and LA just, I thought LA was going to be very different.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's just a big old suburban big city. And I was like, I don't want to live here.
Yeah.
I got turned off by it stupidly or smartly. I don't know. And, I came back home. I ended up getting a job selling computers. And then right at the same time, my buddy ended up shooting another short film. And this woman came into the store where I was selling computers. And she was a funny character lady. And she said, I'm doing this sketch show in Princeton, New Jersey called Pancakes from Hell. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I got the bug even further there. And then literally a month or two later, I auditioned on a whim for this community theater play called Play It Again, Sam. And I actually got one of the leads, believe it or not. And I knew nothing. I didn't have a headshot. I knew nothing. And the lady took a chance on me, Mary McGinley, God love her. She's still around. And after that, someone said, you got to get Backstage magazine and get headshots. And next thing you know, I'm in the city and, doing NYU auditions, hundreds of them, striking out. But I booked a few. And then that led to improv. And that's where I met, my partner in crime, Artie Lange.
Yeah.
And me and him were buddies from the start. And we just hit it off, two peas in a pod. And we were always on stage together. And Artie was such a dominant force. He was so great. And, I don't know if it took away from me a little bit, but you know what it was like? It's like having Michael Jordan on your team or LeBron.
Yeah.
And your job is to bring the ball up, get it into Artie,
right,
and you score, and the team wins. But Artie, I say that not as someone that Artie was just good. So when it comes to humor, you just let him fly. But I was right alongside of him, getting my own kind of laughs. I was different than him. So and we were friends, and then Artie's career took off, and he got picked up by Mad TV. But then 6 months later, our show got picked up by NBC, which was wild.
Oh, okay.
So that let me know that I was doing the producer of the show told me years later that he was actually going to fire me from the sketch group because he didn't think that I could handle being without Artie. I was like, Batman and Robin. Where's Robin? Abbott and Costello. Where's Abbott? And but what happened? Thank God, the first rehearsal with the new cast members after Artie, I'll never forget this as long as I live. And I was like cocky, like, who are these new people? Come on, we did a lot of cool show. We got signed by William Morris. I was like not cocky, but like, come on, I'm like, I've arrived. So stupidly, and then we have a first rehearsal, and I realized I was like, oh my God, like these people, they're as good as Artie. Like they're awesome.
Yeah,
and they're deep, and Artie and I had like 2 sketches. Artie had like 12. These people had like 40, and they were good, and they were educated, and they were smart and fast. And I realized that, wow, I thought I was cool throwing 88 miles an hour with a decent changeup, and these people are throwing 90. And I actually, people can argue this, but I'm telling you, it's a fact. After that, at rehearsal, I was like, Jimmy, you are full attention. I was zeroed in, focused, and I actually ended up playing pretty well for that group. And I did well even with NBC, and I was I cut my I made the team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
I
when
wasn't batting, So I'm rambling on here. Just cut me off.
No. So when you're in the sketch group with Artie, were you guys like at a specific spot all the time doing shows?
No, we did these. Improv was kind of new. I'm not new. Improv was new. The kind of sketch improv stuff we were doing was like a lot of stand-ups were doing more improv and sketch and stuff like that. And so this guy, Mike Stafford, because we were in a group called Alan Chan's, forget what Alan Chan's improv group. And he stopped doing it. And one of the guys in the group, a guy named Mike Stafford, key man in Artie and my life, he said, I want to produce these shows, but I want to do sketches. And then we started doing videos. So we were called live on tape. We would have a TV screen on a big TV screen on the studio, on the stage. And we would play live videos in between, like SNL does.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that was no one was really doing that at the time. We were kind of first with that. Because you had to actually bring a TV on the stage.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the TV. I did the video. And the videos were funny. Artie, of course, was great. And we started to make some noise. And then Artie left the group. Of course, we had to hire like 4 people to replace him. And we started to we got really good.
Yeah.
And I guess it helped that one of our members was on Mad TV. It probably helped. I'm sure it did. And the next thing you know, we were doing big shows in front of big executives. And I always pride myself and the group. We had some big shows, man. We're like, okay, there's 60 people in the audience, big decision makers. These people are big, like, people that produced, got Friends on the air and got Frasier on the air, those kind of executives. And you know what? We smashed it. And there were some shows I laugh looking back where even individually, I got lucky. I had big nights when the money was on. I was like, what? I just had a great show. Fuck me. But the group always did as well. They were so talented. The other 6 people were just awesome. Amy Wilson and Mary Birdsong, who's on Reno 911.
Oh, yeah.
Alec Holland, who's great. And Barbara Harrell and Tony Menudo and Tom Bolster and Amy Wilson, who's got a bunch of big podcasts as well. These are talented people, boy.
Yeah.
And some of them are in and out of showbiz. Some are just connected a little bit. Me and Mary Birdsong are the only ones who are still purely performing. But we were tough out. There was no question about that. And but we got picked up by NBC and we shot at 30 Rock, man, where the band plays for SNL. That was our stage.
Wow.
We were the biggest late night development deal ever by NBC.
Oh, really?
At that point. It was a big deal. I could show you some of the footage. It's awesome.
I'd love to see that.
And the woman who was shepherding us ended up leaving from NBC, and we got another person in there. and she didn't have the juice. And of course, Lorne Michaels and NBC, you know,
Mhm.
you don't mess with George Steinbrenner. He ended up getting the thing shut down. He's like, no, we're not having
Oh,
the show
yeah.
on the air. And the show never aired, which was a huge hit to my career looking back, which is the reason why I'm just on a podcast now. But I'm kidding. On my own podcast too. But it was a big hit, you know. Oh, we had it, you know. But it also put a lot of money in my pocket and made some noise with the right people. So I think I answered your question in a very long-winded way.
Yeah, no, you definitely did. So you met Artie in the sketch group, or you guys joined?
I met him before, right
Before?
before we did dinner theater together.
Oh,
We did
really?
live dinner theater where we were the waiters as well. Think about this.
Wow.
Me and Artie doing this murder mystery. Okay. And Artie played the killer and I played the guy who gets killed. And oh my God, we would get like $75 a show plus the tips. And sometimes we have 200 people. It was like the best gig ever. I was making $400 a night. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But Artie and I would get a buzz on. We were both young. Artie played a drunk priest, and sometimes he was not acting. And we have, I mean, it's the stories are endless. It's just the producer was doing cocaine. She was out of her mind, and this is before Artie was really into drugs. And we, oh man, it was a lot of fun though. But that's how we learned how to do like improv off our feet. You had to serve food in character. And
Right. Yeah, that's
kind of like, you know what it was, like that Tony and Tina's wedding kind of thing was kind of like that. You know, so we weren't reinventing the wheel, but for me it was new shit. I had to give people chicken cordon bleu and make them laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a lot of fun. So
Wow.
that's what happened there.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Pretty funny.
So was Artie doing stand-up? When did you start doing stand-up?
No, Artie wasn't doing much. Artie didn't start really doing. Artie did stand-up maybe 3 or 4 times before before the live on tape. He started doing stand-up in 95, 96 after Mad TV aired, and he got into it. And I was already doing my thing, and he would go into the city. I was down the Jersey Shore having a good time. I probably should have tagged along with him, but I didn't for whatever reason. He started going into the city, and the beautiful thing is, and there's no disrespect to Artie at all, it's funny as hell. You know, when you're on a TV show, you get stage time, man.
Right.
I mean, if me and you were on Law and Order and we go down to stand up in New York, everybody gets bumped. You know that, right?
Yeah.
But so Artie never had to grovel like we do. Oh, who's that? Can we meet him? Or can you give me? Yeah, I got a date available. You know, July 8th. You're like, oh, okay, it's February. But I always, one thing about Artie, man, when opportunity came his way, or luck, whatever you want to call it, he delivered the goods. So that's not a knock on Artie at all. He delivered the goods to get on Mad TV. He delivered the goods at Howard Stern when he went in as just a guest of Norm.
Yeah, Norm.
Yeah. And Artie delivered the goods at meetings when he got development deals. So people that say Artie got lucky, yeah, maybe he did. We all do, but you're getting lucky right now having me on the show.
Right, exactly.
I'm teasing. But no, listen, you can be wide open, but you have to hit the shot. You got to hit the shot. Or you got to dunk. You got to go over everybody and dunk the ball. You know, and he did that each and every time. So give him credit. Good man.
Are you're still close with Artie?
I am. He's going through. He went through some rough times, but he's definitely sober. He's just having a little trouble getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah.
But I think maybe in another. I say in the summertime, maybe a little bit after, he'll start. I think he's going to start popping up again.
Yeah, that's good.
But I talk to his family all the time, and he's hanging in there. So
good.
Big news is that he's not doing drugs anymore.
Yeah,
so.
That's great.
But it takes time to get your life back, and I think that's what he's doing. And I have full faith, and I hope to be. When he goes back on the road, I want to be his middleman. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a great show.
I hope. Anyway, I'm teasing. I don't care. I just want to go see him, you know. But
I know.
So he's doing all right, and he'll be. A lot of people, all the rumors you hear online, a lot of them are nonsense. He's doing okay. He's just gotta. He'll be back soon.
Yeah,
that's my feeling prediction. So
that's good. Well, you were in beer league with him.
Yes, dear to my heart. Beer League started out as a short film. As a matter of fact, I'm going to toot my own because I feel like you're interviewing Artie Lange through me. But
No.
I'm only kidding. I don't mind talking about Artie. I love him. Artie started making a few bucks on Mad TV, and we wanted to do a short film. And my best friend Mike Ruane, who he also knew, we wanted to shoot a short film that summer when he was off of Mad TV. And we sat. I never forget. We were on a speakerphone, and we were going through ideas for a short. And I'll never forget this because I started it. I just said, why don't we do a short about what happens 15 minutes before a guy's softball game? And I remember Artie was playing softball with a couple of his buddies, and I was managing a softball team that my dad started in 1967 called Corona Construction from Corona, Queens, New York. And my buddy Mike, the director, his dad passed away at an early age, but he played with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing with me on the softball team. Good hitter too. And as soon as I said, what happens 15 minutes for a softball game? I'm like, you got one guy's running late. One guy's talking about Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
Another guy's talking about buying a house. One guy's talking about how his kids are a pain in the ass. All these conversations. One guy's talking about how they did too many shots the night before. There's all these conversations and how the concept of you could be making $1 million a year and you could be unemployed. Once you get to the field, it's like you're 15 again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like being in the lunch hall again. The guy who's making millions of dollars, nobody cares unless he goes 3 for 4 and he wins the game. If you're a big time lawyer and you go 0 for 4, you are catching more shit than you can imagine. And that's that beautiful thing about, especially, Jersey softball. And we were good players too, back in the day. And Artie and Mike's eyes lit up. They were like, that's it. So Artie and Mike really started to write the script. I added a little bit to it, a couple of punchlines here and there when we got to the set. But most of it was written by Artie and Mike. And we went down to Florida, Orlando. And Mike was so happy what was going on. He ended up borrowing money off his mother. And we made this killer short called Game Day. Go online and Google Game Day Artie Lange. And you'll see it. Sometimes it's in part 1 and part 2, but either way, it's 17 minutes long. Many people think it's like, love it. If you're a Beer League fan, you'll love this.
Yeah.
Some of the characters are the same. I kind of played Johnny Trino in that one as well. And they took that tape and that's what they pitched. He got together with Frank Sebastiano, started writing the feature, but every meeting they went to, every contact, I don't care. This is controversial in the bowels of Beer League, but that Mike Ruane directed DVD was the reason why that puppy got sold into a script. And then next thing you know, we're shooting Beer League. Unfortunately, my buddy Mike wasn't involved due to personality conflicts, and Frank Sebastiano decided it was his script and he wanted to direct it. I can't blame Frank. My buddy Mike got screwed on that. But I have, I'll speak to you off air about that. And next thing you know, we were shooting Beer League and we were able to get Ralph Macchio and a really awesome cast, Seymour Cassell. And we ended up shooting it. Artie was starting to struggle a little bit in his personal life. So that was a pain in the ass, but we got through it. Artie did a great job and it's like a cult hit.
Yeah. It's a very funny movie.
It was never produced. Distributed right. Distributors had no money. They didn't do it right. They only opened up. The movie was only in the theaters for 10 days in New York, Philly, Boston, and Cleveland. So from like Philly up to Boston on like the Turnpike, Route 95 corridor in Cleveland. And the distributors couldn't wait to get it out of the theaters because they knew they had the DVD market. And back then they could make real money on DVDs. Yeah. And that's what they did. That's exactly what we didn't want.
Right.
And then the movie ended up only becoming a cult hit. And it's another one, first the sketch show didn't get on the air and now Beer League was a buzz. So, but never was a bust. It was always well received amongst that East Coast, Boston, Philly, Jersey guy and people from Indiana. People that watch it got a kick out of it.
Right. Exactly.
In that genre, it was one of the early R-rated comedies. And then after that, all the comedies were R-rated.
Yeah.
We were kind of, I don't want to say we were the first, but we were the first one, that was more raunchy and R-rated comedies that people were studios were afraid to do. And so the movie was funny as hell. It was a joy to do. And I had a great character called Johnny Trino, which I actually on my podcast now, I do this alter ego, Johnny Trino.
Oh, really?
And I've interviewed Johnny Trino. I play softball on the podcast network team, and I play as Johnny Trino on the podcast. We discussed how I did and stuff. So
that's funny.
And that's my hat here, 706. That's what I batted. That's my brand. I'm branding here. So yeah, it was just a great time.
Yeah, that's good. My buddy and I were just talking recently, like you're saying, like they went the DVD market, it would have done well as an R-rated comedy. Like no comedies even really come out in theaters anymore. It's all just big budget.
Well, now,
superhero movies and stuff.
I get the Screen Actors Guild screeners now, and these movies are great. Some of them are either already on Netflix or they're in the movie theaters for an hour. It's just it's a crazy thing. It's just, well, listen, showbiz, movies used to have no sound.
Yeah,
it had sound, and movies used to be and sense around, and the movies used to have that CinemaScope screen, and then TV came out. TV was the devil. Now everything's on TV, and now everything's streamed, and there'll be, who knows, maybe one day there'll be holograms dancing around your living room.
Yeah. So going back to the sketch show, would you say that was like your first big break? What was your big role?
Well, I'll never forget this. When we did Live on Tape, we were shooting at Studio 8H, which is where Carson started, where SNL, where the band plays. And I invited the first taping, 25 of my family members. I made sure I got all the tickets. My mother, my father, my grandmother, the whole damn thing was there. My brothers, my cousins. It was like a few friends, but mostly I said the first show, I'm going to bring in my people. And afterwards, while they were online, I was able to come out. They were online with like the NBC pages with the guys with the blue jackets, like you see on what the hell is that show? 30 Rock.
Yeah.
I came out briefly. I said, "Hey guys, I got to run back in." They're like, "Oh, you have to wait to load in the audience and all that stuff." And my cousin John looked at me and he was like, "Hey man, this is the real. Even my brother looked at me and goes, 'Hey, Jimmy, go back inside. We got, don't worry about us out here.'" And like, they all were giving me a look like, and I think the look was, which I don't know if you can relate to it. I think it was the look like, I can only do it with a sports reference. It was like, "Hey, we thought Jimmy was out of his mind. Maybe he was funny at the family parties, but like, we're walking into Yankee Stadium right now, and Jimmy is wearing a Yankee uniform, and he's leading off. Like, he is playing in the, like, it would. There's no doubt after that, it helped me financially, because whenever I had to borrow a few dollars, they were like, "Well, no, he's gonna make it." No, but it was that first moment where, like, and then to be honest with you, I got up, someone threw me a 98 miles an hour fastball, and I slapped it over second baseman's head, and I was on first. It was like Jimmy's playing in this league, and I felt that way too. And so that was my really first big break. But to be honest with you, probably my first big break was getting cast in that community theater play at Playhouse 22 in East Brunswick, New Jersey. Had that lady, Mary Olivetti, the sketch show I did first, and this Mary McGinley, two Marys hired me. How about that? If they didn't hire me, I don't know. I was selling computers, and I ended up working for Microsoft. I mean, I quit Microsoft, bro, before Windows was a product. Think about that.
Really?
And I also made the mistake of selling $3,000 worth of Microsoft stock in 1990. What if I had shoved that piece of paper with this up my ass and kept it there? I'd be a millionaire many times over. So yeah, I would say those first, and all the kids out there, you don't know when your break's going to happen. Listen, I'm doing your show right now. I don't know you from a can of paint. You don't know me.
Right.
You came. Now, if I did really shitty, you probably wouldn't have had me on the show, right?
Sure.
I happen to have a decent set. This guy's funny. And not that either one of us is getting a break. We're doing a podcast, but no, I mean, it's like, you don't know. Who knows? Like, you don't know when your break is coming. That's why you got to just stay in there. I believe in, you got to just hang in there a little while longer, and you got to make sure you have enough money to live a decent life. But as you get older, your priorities change. Eating pizza every day, that gets old, and as your friends, I don't know why I feel like I'm being priest-like here. What happened to me is as you start off together, you're in the same group. You're all rookies. You all suck. So you start off with 100 friends of yours that are doing this wacky thing called show business. But as you get older, some drop off, they get a life, they get married, they have kids, and then it's down to 60 and then 35. Then what happens is your contacts get older. Next thing you know, 3 of your buddies are working on a TV show as writers. 2 of them are producing some bad show on HGTV. And next thing you know, you're 30 years old, you're 8 years in, and now you have like real contacts. Like, you know people. You actually, so I always tell people, stay in it so your contacts can grow. Maybe you do a show with somebody, or maybe someone produces your podcast, and then 3 years later they're producing something on ESPN. You know that guy now, and if you do good work, that guy's gonna be like, you know what, I'm gonna find a spot for this guy, and it does happen that way. So, unfortunately, you can be really good and still have to quit because of financial reasons, or you just don't make it, or I've had that. I'm the kind of guy. I'm a working actor. 32 years in. I qualified for my health benefits the last 17 years in a row, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Qualified for my pension, which is wonderful. But I have downtimes in there, man. I got to do. I've Ubered. I bartend still a little bit. I've DoorDashed. I mean, I got to pay. You got to make something happen. I've also had huge auditions that are game changers, man. I see shows on the air and I'm like, damn, I read for that part,
Yeah.
Now, of course, you forget whether or not you had a good audition or not. So you just don't know when the days of like, I did the Tonight Show and I did well, and now I'm on tour. It's not like that.
Exactly.
Like, no, I did Trent Mabry's show at the Stand Up New York on a Monday night at 5:30 at night, but 2 of his buddies work for blah, blah, blah. And now I'm doing blah, blah, blah because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's how it works, but eventually you have to, I always tell people, eventually you got to hit. Yeah, everybody talks about the process, and that's fine. I get it. But like, for instance, like, the process of doing a podcast, getting your computer set up, getting the right microphones, figuring out Zoom and all this bullshit. But guess what? Eventually you have to do a good podcast. So you can talk about process all you want. And I have my own show, the Jimmy Palumbo Show, shameless plug. And eventually you have to do your own podcast, and you have to play well. So people can talk about the process, but when you get in the game, you got to hit.
Exactly.
If you go 0 for 4 every night, but your process is good luck.
Yeah.
I'd rather be 3 for 4 with a lousy attitude, a lousy process. So that's my theory. Anyway, now I'm pontificating. What's going on?
No, I think you're doing, it's great. So you were on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Curb. Yeah.
And that's all improvised, right? Or you have like the outline of what the scene is supposed to be.
Yes, I can tell you. I don't know how much time we have, but it's a podcast. That was as much time as I want. Being such a jerk, my producer on my podcast be yelling at me right now. Well, what happened was I came back. How crazy is this now? Curb shoots in LA, right? I came back to New York. I was home 3 days, and I had an audition for Curb. Why? Because they were shooting their season finale in New York when they were using the stage where they were doing the producers. And that whole year was about being on the producers. I didn't know any of this crap. So I auditioned for it. I booked the thing. And I tell the story all the time. I called my parents were at a barbecue in Long Island. And I called my mother and father, telling them I booked the show Curb because I was excited about it. I'm also a huge fan of the show. And it wasn't as popular as it is now. It was getting popular, but now it's like everybody knows it. Back then, it was like the cool show that like only people knew about, like people that were into that kind of thing. So I called up my father's there with a bunch of his buddies he played baseball with in the 50s. One of the guys' name was Joe Rizza. You're gonna think the story is stupid. So I go, Dad, I booked the show with Larry David, the guy who wrote all the episodes on Seinfeld. So my father's like, hey, Joe, my buddy, my buddy, my son's just booked on a TV show. Which one is this? Curb. And I hear Joe Rizzo, give me the phone. Give me the phone. This guy, Joe Rizzo, gets on the phone. He's like, Jimmy, what's going on? I'm like, hey, how are you? He goes, I know Larry David. He used to live by 8th Avenue. I had the fruit stand, and he wrote that famous episode about him touching all the fruit on Seinfeld. That was me. And then so Joe starts ripping on what a pain in the ass Larry David is. He can be such a jerk off. He's going on and on. But then he's like, but tell him I said hello. I've talked to him. He wrote the episode. He sent me a nice note. So I'm thinking, all right, oh my God, this guy is the guy with the touching the fruit episode, which I remember on Seinfeld. Many people do. So I get to the set. Now, when I went to the audition, I'll go back a little bit. They gave me one line. Every major actor in New York was auditioning for this.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a who's who of, you just knew. I was like, I'm not going to book this. These are like names sitting here. The casting director looks at my one line and she's looked in front of everybody, which I love shit like this. She goes, oh, Jimmy, that's too small of a part for you. Let me give you something bigger in front of all these people. Now I'm like, oh my God. They think I'm like, Patrick Ewing all of a sudden. So she gives me the thing. You go in this little room. The room was 5 by 6. And there's Larry David, well, what's his name? Jeff Garland in the room. And Larry starts doing the improv. And right away, I'm like, wow, this guy's out of his mind. He's crazy, right? So I booked the part. I show up. I got to go to the actual theater where they're shooting producers. And where the producer play was on, happening. And the woman says, okay, Jimmy, okay, your trailer's on 8th Avenue between 43rd and 44th. She says, your trailer. So I'm thinking, okay, they always have, on like Law and Order, they have this big trailer and they have like 6 little rooms. You get like a 2 foot by 4 foot area just to get changed and stuff. So I walk over and there's one RV. And it was one of those where you could drive it yourself. It was a weird. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wonder, maybe they're putting Larry David up in the actual theater. And they're just putting me in this little room. I open up the door and who's in there but David Schwimmer from Friends, Jason Alexander, and another guy. My guy's a famous director. He passed away. Is in the room, and I'm like, oh, I said, I'm sorry. They told me to come here, and they're like, are you working on Curb? And I said, yeah. He goes, no, this is it. This is you. So I walk in the room. Now I'm like, hey. So David Schwimmer says, hey, and they're talking around the little table. Nobody says anything to me. Now I'm like, okay, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
So then finally there was a break and it's like, oh, and I said, hey, David, how you doing? I was like, I actually did an episode of Friends. He said, really? Which one? I told him the season finale when Jennifer Aniston has the baby. He's like, I remember you. You were very funny. Now I'm like, okay, I'm getting some, but meanwhile, I had to get dressed to do the part. And so I was like, oh, I'll just go in the back room where the bed is in a little RV. So I open up the door a little bit and I see a woman's foot in the bed. And the guy's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to get changed. He's like, well, you can't go back there. Cheryl's back there. It was Cheryl Hines who was pregnant taking a nap. But I know Cheryl Hines because her husband at the time was partners with Peter Principato, now Artist First of a management company. I was Peter's first client with Artie. So I was like, I know Cheryl. I know her little boy. It's another story there. I'll tell you someday. So I had to change in the bathroom with like one leg out of the bathroom trying to get the clothes on. It was so awkward. And then Ray Romano stopped in to say hello. It was stupid. All right, I'm sitting there. And all I tried to do is be quiet and act like you're a freshman at the senior lunch table in high school. So just act like you're cool. Like, meanwhile, I'm like, what am I doing? I couldn't wait to get out of the RV because I'm like, I wanted to call my buddies and be like, dude, you're not going to believe the people I'm sitting with. And then we ended up shooting the scene. And getting back to Joe Rizzo, my father's friend, I decided to take a moment to, say, I said, hey, Larry, friend of the family, all the crew's there, but they didn't hear me. Very calm. It's like, yeah, friend of the family, my dad's friend, Joe Rizzo. As soon as I said the word name, Joe Rizzo, Larry David starts screaming at me. Oh, that piece of shit. He owned that fruit stand. He starts screaming. And the crew's looking at me like, what did that jackass say to Larry David to fire him? He gets in my face almost, personal space. He's screaming at me. I'm thinking, what did Joe Rizzo do to piss this guy off? And then just like Joe Rizzo, he goes, yeah, but tell Joe I said hello. Yeah, I did a whole episode about him. I was like, ooh, this guy, Larry David's tough. So then we go into the scene, right? And he yells, cut. He goes, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not doing anything like you did on the audition. I'm like, oh, okay. He looks at me in front of everybody, like, 15, 20 crew members. He goes, do you know why you booked this role? I said, no, I don't know why, sir. He goes, because you did nothing at the audition. Okay. That's a direct hit to the acting heart of the world, right? I said, okay. Now I'm like, hey, man, Jimmy, you're getting paid. Just get out of here. This is like, I don't want to be near this guy. So I said, in the next take, I'm like, Jimmy, don't do a thing. Don't move your face. Don't move your body. Just completely like you're having a stroke. We do that. We start doing it. As soon as they yell cut, he's like, okay, now what are you doing? He goes, you did nothing on that take. Now I'm like, well, you just told me to do nothing.
Right.
So then we do another take and they yell cut. And he's like, all right, split the difference. By the fifth take, I kid you not, Larry David's like, hey, Jimmy, you think that take was funny? I was wondering, you think we could? Now I'm like, wait a minute. You went from calling me a jerk off. So I acted like a jerk off. Then you meet me halfway. So we're both jerk offs. And now you're asking me, like Larry David's asking me for creative stuff. And then they asked me to do this. They call it the stare down. Like, that part.
Yeah.
The director comes over to me and says, hey, listen, Larry's going to do the stare down, but I have to tell the actor, because if I don't tell the actor, take gets blown every time. So I was like, what do I do? I just stare back at him. He goes, just stare back at him. Look at his nose, look at his ear, look at his, just stare back. And in your head, he goes, do the do. So when you watch the scene, you can almost see my lips almost going do. Nuts. It was nuts. And it ended up being like a pretty famous scene in the world of Curb, and a very popular season finale.
Yeah.
And but it was just absolutely a thrill to work with him. It was just it was awesome.
That's great.
One of my top bookings for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'd love to talk to you about.
I'm good.
All right. I'd love to talk to you about working with De Niro and
Awesome.
Tommy Lee Jones and
another booking of a lifetime. I booked this. I went into the audition with Luc Besson, who was a big time director, producer at the time. There were some heavy hitters up for the role. I book it, and I'll never forget it, because I was walking in New York City and my agent calls me. He goes, Jimmy, it looks like you booked a day on this movie, The Family. I'm like, all right, good. And then he calls me back 20 minutes later. Hey, it looks like it's going to be a couple of days. All right, good. Cool. I'm thinking, maybe I'll make $5,000 off this, And then he's like, Jimmy, call me back. What's your availability? Next thing you know, it goes from working one day, within 2 hours, he's like, dude, you're going to France for 6 weeks. I was like, France? And for big money.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, this is, again, I got caught a break. And next thing you know, I'm in France on Luc Besson's estate. And the cast was De Niro, Tommy Lee Jones, Michelle Pfeiffer. But the weird thing was we were all on his compound. So we ate in a room 20 by 20 with 6 tables every night. So got to the point where when you come in, you just sat down, like being in a cafeteria. So the first night, De Niro sitting across from me, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have dinner. And then the third night, Tommy Lee Jones would walk in behind De Niro, and they would sit with us.
Yeah.
I was with Dominic Lombardozzi. And then we were all on this estate together. So you'd see them walking around. It was nuts. And then Michelle Pfeiffer, and I got to know them like really well, just from like BSing with them. And I said to myself, Jimmy, on a flight to France, you cannot become a better actor, but you can just be you and act like you're going to your shore house in Jersey. Just have fun. And I had the life experience, and literally I had dinner with Tommy Lee Jones about 15 nights. It was nuts. Sat right next to me.
Yeah.
And what are weird.
Tommy Lee Jones seems like funny. A hard guy to.
Yes, he was tough, but you know what? He was crazy, but he was my guy. You know what I mean? You ever you ever have that weird uncle, but he's your uncle? So and I used to just love watching him interact, because he was rude to me as well when I first met him. And I was like, oh my God, Tommy Lee Jones hates me. But after a while, he started to dig, he got understood me and Dominic Lombardozzi. And then I'd watch other people come up to him, and he would just say stupid stuff to him and freak him out. I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what you mean. And we ended up meeting his wife. His wife was a doll. It was a lot of fun. But then, even Michelle Pfeiffer was sweet, beautiful. And De Niro was great. I mean,
He seems like a
he
hard
was,
guy to talk to as well, just
no, he's a
based on
very
interviews.
sweet, calm.
Yeah.
I know there's, listen, he's probably got a public persona when you're doing interviews. And now
Mm-hmm.
I think he got a little political, and I'm not getting into any of that. That's
Sure.
But he's not the guy from Goodfellas. It's
Mm-hmm.
not who De Niro is. That's not who he is. He's acting. He's very soft, very calm, very, very, very friendly, but he's not the life of the party or anything like that. But he did me a great thing at the premiere. I wasn't sure if he was going to remember me because it was a year later, but I knew he would. And because I busted his balls at the eating, and he came walking down the aisle, and first he looked at me and didn't say anything. I made sure I literally stood up so he could see me. I was being such a jerk. He sees me. He's like, "Hey, Jimmy," gives me a big hug. And I whispered to him, I said, "Hey, man, any way you can say hello to my mother and father." Now, my father was a little short Italian guy, kind of a Martin Scorsese looking guy. And he's like, "Sure, Mr. Palumbo." He shook my father's hand. My father gave him a hug. My mother, Irish, gave him a big bear hug. "Oh, Robert, my son talks so well about it." It was like, you know what? If I died right there, I won. I got my father and mother to meet Robert De Niro. I mean, game over.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, if I quit, I could say, "Well, how far did you get?" Enough where De Niro gave my dad a hug. Like, I win. You know what I mean? But of course, the movie came out and it didn't do so well at the box office. So just like Live on Tape and Beer League, you get these moments. Warning track power doesn't count in showbiz. The ball has to fly over the fence. It just does.
Yeah.
If it's caught, you're out. If it goes over the fence, your show gets picked up, the movie's a hit, and you're off to the races. So that's just how it is. But I will tell you this, one of the things I'm very proud of that a lot of people don't know, I had so much fun with Luc Besson busting his balls that with Dominic Lombardozzi, that Luc Besson signed me to a development deal. Now, Luc Besson at the time was one of the biggest director producers in the world.
Yeah.
Taken 3, The Professional. What other big movie was he doing at the time?
Did you do Fifth Element?
Fifth Element. I mean, this guy was worldwide. He's huge in Europe. Forget about Europe. He's considered like, Scorsese there. I busted it. We had so much fun. He signed me and Dominic to a development deal. And Dominic will tell you, I did most of it. I was just, for some reason, I liked the guy. But of course, Luke, unfortunately, did a couple movies that bombed. Valerian, sunk all his money into that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and Luke got into some trouble in the Me Too environment, which is sad. I don't know what's true or not, but I do know he's been exonerated now in every trial. He has not lost any of the trials or settled out of court. He's won each one. So again, I'm not getting into. I love Luke was good to me. That's all I know, and he's been exonerated in the court of law. I hope he didn't do those things.
Yeah,
it didn't seem like he would, but I don't know. And but of course, so even my guy goes away. Like, I can't win. Again, so here I am, back to the podcast. Anyway, it was a thrill of a lifetime. It was a big deal for me. I mean, that was a big movie. I had a big part. I didn't tell anyone that I got killed in it. So we all went to this big theater in New Jersey in Paramus. There was like 100, 2, 3, one of those big 400 seat theaters, I must have had at least 150 people there. That from me, I just sent the word out, go to the 8:00 showing. Here it is. I'll be there. And everybody, when they first saw me, I heard everybody yelling like, Jimmy, everybody's having a good time. And I'm thinking to myself, when I get killed, this is going to be hysterical because the general audience wouldn't care if I got killed. So if you're in a movie theater and some guy gets killed, everybody goes like, "Oh no, oh no!" As if Jesus got killed or something.
Yeah.
And so here it comes. I get blasted really bad too, very violent. And I hear everybody going like, "No, Jimmy, why? What do you mean you're dead? You're dead?" I'm like, what if you're just some guy at the audience going, why the hell does everybody care about that guy? But not realizing that I was, but also Luke put me in Taken 3, which was cool. I had to audition for it, but I think I had the inside scoop. So anyway, great experience. Just a great experience.
That's great. I enjoyed that movie. I saw it in the theater.
People like it, but it Beer League got better reviews. I swear to God.
Really?
It got like 1.5, 2 stars. It got bashed. Oh, I thought the movie was, a black comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was funny. So I don't know. Maybe maybe I get gigs now because of that. I don't know. But
Yeah.
again, I always make this analogy. A movie called American Pie comes out, is a huge hit, and all 5 of those actors have been working since.
That's
I
true.
do the movie. I have family. I have a nice little part. It doesn't do well at the box office, and now we're doing the Jimmy Palumbo podcast. So,
Well, thanks so much for doing this. I'll end on
sorry
this.
if I went on too long. You could edit.
No, I'd love to have you back on. I feel like we could go for another hour or two, but
I know you got to keep the podcast to a
yeah.
minimum. So whatever you got to do.
Well, I'll end on this. What's something now that you wish you had known when you were first starting out in the business? I
would say to write more, create, write, continue writing, continue to do short films, and don't be married to any of the projects. In other words, if you do a short film, shoot it. If it doesn't work out, you got another one. If you write a script, I wish there's one thing I didn't play well is the writing end of things. When I was with NBC doing the live on tape show, we wrote our own sketches, and the other members of the group would have like 15 sketches. I would have 3. I just wasn't prolific at writing for whatever reason. I don't know. But one NBC executive said to me, I'll never forget it, and it makes it even worse what I'm about to say. He goes, Jimmy, you got to write more, man, because you ever notice when you write something, it goes right into the show?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, but that's making me feel more shitty now, I would say write and create. So now, if you're going to do these TikTok videos, just do them and do them and do them and do them, and get together with other people and get a sketch group together, even though now you don't have to get together. It's all on phones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, but writing, just continue to write. If you got ideas, write. Find a writing partner, be disciplined. I wasn't. I regret that very much so. And that way, when someone likes one of your scripts, you can hand them 4 other ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're doing a podcast, do the best damn podcast you can.
Exactly. Well, thanks, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
You got it, man. Yeah. When are you performing next?
I got something on Sunday at this place called the Beauty Bar.
I've heard of the bar, but I didn't know they do stand up there.
Yeah.
What time? Well, shoot me an email if I'm around. Maybe I'll go check it out.
I will. Yeah, I got some good stuff coming up.
Any stuff, shoot me. I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for the kind words. And again, you can get me online anywhere. Jimmy Palumbo, Instagram, Twitter, the Jimmy Palumbo Show, which is on the Chop Sports Network, and Chop Sports is starting to make some noise, which is cool. And that's it.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Good to talk to you.
You got it. Thank you, man.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. Mercy. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe. But I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face. What is a boy to do? Mabry has left the building.